In a time when silence echoes louder than truth, one woman from the heart of Hollywood is reminding the world, and especially Muslims, what it truly means to live with compassion, justice, and courage. Angelina Jolie, known globally for her acting, humanitarian work, and bold voice, has now done something that many born into the faith of Islam have neglected. Her actions didn't come with grand announcements or religious declarations, yet they sent shockwaves across the Muslim world. Why? Because they reflected the very values that Islam teaches, values many Muslims have slowly drifted away from in today's fast-pacing, distracted world. When Muslims are taught mercy, generosity, empathy, and justice, these are not just ideals, they are commands. But somewhere along the way, as headlines became more political and lives more digital, many forgot the deeper meaning of these values. Meanwhile, a non-Muslim woman, free from the identity of the Ummah, stepped forward and embodied these principles so powerfully that even scholars and imams have taken notice. Angelina Jolie didn't just show up in photo ops. She walked into refugee camps, listened to the brokenhearted, and used her voice when the world turned its back. From Palestine to Yemen, Syria to Afghanistan, her presence brought hope and her words carried weight. While many celebrities avoided controversial topics to protect their careers, Jolie risked hers by speaking truth to power. He stood not just for human rights, but for the forgotten, oppressed, and voiceless Muslims that the world ignored, and perhaps more painfully, that many Muslims themselves forgot. Her actions are a powerful reminder that Islam is not just about rituals, it's about being a force of mercy in this world. It's about standing up for the weak, feeding the hungry, protecting the orphan, and defending the innocent. Jolie didn't carry a prayer mat or fast during Ramadan, but she carried the values that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught. That's what shocked people. That's what inspired millions. And that's what hurt, because her courage highlighted the apathy of many Muslims. This video is not about praising a celebrity. It's about using her example as a mirror. If a non-Muslim woman can represent the heart of Islam through her actions, what's stopping us, those who were born into it, raised by it, and taught its sacred words? Sometimes it takes an outsider to remind the insiders of what they've forgotten. Let's reflect, be humbled, and be inspired, because if she can live like a true believer, so can we. When Angelina Jolie stepped into war-torn regions like Gaza, Syria, and Yemen, she didn't come for applause or to build a brand. She came with a purpose, to bring attention to the people the world had ignored. What made her stand out was not just her fame, but her fearless compassion. She didn't need to be a Muslim to feel the pain of Muslims. She didn't need to recite verses to understand that children bleeding on sidewalks and mothers weeping over rubble were not just numbers. They were human beings. And in that moment, she did something that echoed the teachings of Islam more loudly than many who carry Muslim names. She spoke out when silence was the safer option. She cried for the oppressed when others scrolled past their suffering. She used her influence not for fashion shows or Hollywood gossip, but to stand beside broken families who had lost everything. In doing so, she reminded the world that being a voice for the voiceless is not a religious label. It's a moral duty. Her courage reminded Muslims of the prophetic values they often speak of but sometimes fail to act upon. She chose action over convenience, truth over comfort, and humanity over politics. While many Muslims watched tragedies unfold from behind their screens, Angelina was on the ground. She didn't just donate, she delivered. She didn't just sympathize, she stood in solidarity. And that's where the painful contrast arises. In her actions, we saw reflections of what Islam teaches: mercy, justice, and care for the oppressed. Yet so many Muslims today have forgotten that Islam is not just about personal worship, but about standing for justice with every step. Jolie may not wear a hijab or pray 5 times a day, but she lives out values that many associate with a true believer. She reminds us that sometimes faith is not in words, but in actions. Her choices put many of us to shame, not because she's better, but because she's living out the heart of a faith she doesn't even claim. And in doing so, she's awakening something powerful in the Muslim world, a call to return to the real essence of Islam through action, not just identity. In a world filled with political agendas and selective justice, Angelina Jolie took a stance that most celebrities shy away from. She didn't wait for trending hashtags or public approval to raise her voice. Instead, she used her platform to expose the double standards and forgotten humanity behind wars, especially those affecting Muslim-majority countries. What sets her apart is not just her words, but her consistency. She has visited refugee camps, held orphans in her arms, and faced the raw reality of war zones, places many would never dare to step foot in. Her actions shattered the illusion that caring about Muslim lives is controversial or politically incorrect. For many Muslims around the world, her courage has become a mirror. It reflects back at them and raises a painful question. Why are we not doing more? Angelina Jolie, without being Muslim, has embodied the values of charity, empathy, and justice that Islam holds so dear. She didn't do it to gain followers or media attention. In fact, she often acted quietly, away from the spotlight. That humility and sincerity is something that resonates deeply within the teachings of it. Yet many Muslims have become passive, desensitized, or even hesitant to speak out for fear of backlash or discomfort. While debates continue in mosques and homes about politics, culture, and division, this Hollywood star focused on unity and compassion. She reminded us that being a good human being transcends religion. Her actions push us to ask ourselves, are we really representing Islam if we stay silent in the face of injustice? Her journey has become a subtle but powerful wake-up call to the Muslim world. She is not converting anyone, but she is converting hearts back to the core of what it means to be a Muslim in action, not just in name. Angelina Jolie may never say, "I follow Islam," but the way she lives, with dignity, justice, and relentless compassion, has caused many Muslims to reevaluate how much of Islam they truly follow. When a non-Muslim woman carries values that the religion so strongly teaches, it becomes more than inspiration. It becomes a call for revival. While many in the entertainment industry chase fame, luxury, and applause, Angelina Jolie chose a different path, one that reflects the very essence of service and humility. What makes her journey so remarkable is how she quietly aligns herself with principles that are deeply rooted in Islam, caring for the oppressed, standing against injustice, and using one's influence to amplify the voices of the voiceless. Time and again, she stepped into places of pain and chaos, not for film roles, but for real people. She stood in Palestine, wept in Syria, listened in Yemen, and comforted the forgotten souls in refugee camps. These actions weren't for a publicity stunt. They were acts of genuine concern, something many Muslims have been instructed to do but often overlook. Angelina Jolie reminds the world that dignity is not found in status but in service. She didn't wait to be Muslim to practice what Muslims are taught daily. Her empathy transcended culture, faith, and borders. What is most humbling is how she did not claim righteousness or superiority. Instead, she listened, learned, and responded with love and action. It is as if her heart naturally found alignment with values Muslims are proud to call their own, yet sometimes neglect to act upon. This has stirred a powerful emotion in the global Muslim community. Here is a woman, who has no obligation to support Muslim causes. Yet she does so consistently, fearlessly, and sincerely. While some Muslims hesitate to speak out, fearing consequences or rejection, she leads with courage and compassion. Her activism exposes the quiet apathy that has settled in many hearts. She becomes a living reminder that Islam is not about titles or rituals alone, but about standing up for truth and mercy, even when it's unpopular. In a time when people debate identity and loyalty, Angelina Jolie simply chooses humanity. And in doing so, she inadvertently lives by Islamic values that many Muslims have sadly forgotten. Her example is not one of conversion, but of conviction. A conviction that being just, merciful, and compassionate is not bound to religion, but to the soul of a person. And that truth has deeply touched millions, especially those who now look within and ask themselves, am I truly living my faith? In a world where image often matters more than intention, Angelina Jolie has become an unexpected mirror for the Muslim world. Her actions, driven not by faith, but by human instinct, have brought to light some difficult truths that many Muslims must confront. Her compassion for orphans, refugees, and war-torn communities echoes the very lessons found in Islam. Help the needy, stand for the oppressed, speak for those without a voice. Yet it is painful to witness how often these values are ignored or forgotten by many within the Muslim Ummah. When a non-Muslim upholds these values so sincerely, it forces a moment of reflection. Angelina didn't lecture, she led by example. She didn't seek praise, but her genuine involvement in humanitarian crises has earned her the admiration of people across faiths. Muslims are taught that every kind deed is an act of worship, that every life matters, and that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. These teachings can become hollow if they're not lived. What many Muslims forgot, Jolie remembered. She remembered to care, to act, to sacrifice her comfort for the pain of others. And that silent dedication echoes louder than sermons. This truth is uncomfortable. It raises questions. Have Muslims become too passive in the face of injustice? Have they forgotten the spirit of their own teachings while focusing only on appearances? Jolie's consistent defense of displaced Muslims, her tears for their children, and her fearless voice in international platforms shake the hearts of those who have remained silent. She did not wait for someone to guide her, she followed her conscience, and her conscience led her to embody what Muslims are supposed to represent. And maybe that's what stings the most. A non-Muslim woman became a light in places where Muslim voices had dimmed. She reminded the world of mercy, justice, and sincerity, core pillars of Islam, not through words, but through sacrifice. Her presence in the darkest corners of the world, standing beside the forgotten, is a call to action for Muslims everywhere, a call to return to the roots of their faith, a call to remember what they were meant to be in this world, a source of peace, mercy, and strength for all of humanity. Angelina Jolie's story is not just about charity or good deeds, it's about rediscovering the essence of what it means to be truly human. In many parts of the Muslim world, religious practices are upheld outwardly. Prayers are offered, fasts are kept, rituals are maintained. But the heart of the message often gets lost in routine. The core of Islam is compassion, mercy, justice, and responsibility towards others. Jolie, without carrying the title of a Muslim, reflected these values with remarkable consistency, and in doing so, she unknowingly held a mirror to a global community that sometimes forgets to live by the spirit of its own teachings. She didn't speak Arabic, she didn't grow up with the call to prayer echoing through her home, and yet her actions spoke louder than many Friday sermons. When she stood with the displaced, when she embraced the victims of war, when she raised her voice against oppression, She was fulfilling roles that many Muslims today shy away from. Her life became a living reminder that belief is not just what you declare, but what you do when no one is watching. That sometimes actions of the heart hold more weight than 1,000 words on the tongue. It is not about idolizing a celebrity, it's about recognizing when someone outside the faith is living the very values that Islam taught first. And it should not cause anger, it should spark a revival. Because if a non-Muslim woman can embody values of kindness, courage, and empathy so openly, then surely Muslims can reconnect with the core of their faith and do even better. Her example reminds us that titles mean nothing without action, and rituals without purpose can become empty habits. This moment is a wake-up call for Muslims across the world, not to feel ashamed, but to feel inspired, not to compete in words, but to lead in service. Angelina Jolie's journey should be seen as a challenge, a lesson, and a gift. She has reminded a sleeping world what it looks like to live for others, to defend the weak, and to act without fear. And in doing so, she's given Muslims an unexpected reason to return to their values, not because someone told them to, but because they remembered what they were always meant to be. In a time when social media often fuels division and many voices remain silent in the face of injustice, Angelina Jolie chose a different path. She didn't just use her platform for fame or fashion. She used it to stand up for the forgotten, the voiceless, and the oppressed. That kind of courage is rare. And even rarer when it comes from someone outside the Muslim community who chooses to speak for Muslim causes. She reminded the world of something powerful, that truth, justice, and compassion are not bound by religion, language, or nationality. They are human values, and those who hold on to them live above titles and borders. What many Muslims have forgotten is that Islam was never just about identity, it was about action. Being a true believer means being just when it's hard, being kind when it's unpopular, and standing up when others sit down. Angelina Jolie, without needing to convert, showed the world what that looks like. She traveled to war-torn regions, met with displaced Muslim families, listened to their pain, and carried their stories back to the world. While many Muslims have turned away from the suffering of their brothers and sisters, she walked right into it. Her boldness also highlighted the silence of many leaders, those in power, those with resources, those with influence, who often say little or nothing about global injustices facing the Muslim world. But here was Jolie, fearless and outspoken, calling out injustice where she saw it. She didn't ask whether it was popular. She didn't fear backlash. She simply did what was right. That kind of moral clarity, that bravery, is something every believer should aspire to. Her actions didn't shame Islam, they honored its deepest principles. What's even more remarkable is the humility with which she moves. She doesn't claim to be a savior, she simply cares. And in a world where even caring has become rare, that alone is revolutionary. It should push Muslims everywhere to reflect on their own roles, not just in prayer halls, but in the real world, where people are hurting, where justice is needed, and where Islam's values are waiting to be lived again. Jolie's journey is not a thread, it's a mirror, and what we see in it is up to us. In a world that often forgets compassion, one woman reminded us all what it truly means to care. Angelina Jolie, without claiming faith or seeking applause, lived the values many Muslims speak of but sometimes neglect to embody. She walked into places most turn away from, held hands others ignored, and gave a voice to those long silenced. Her actions weren't about religion, they were about humanity. Yet in doing so, she lived principles that Islam has championed for centuries: justice, mercy, and unwavering compassion. This is not just her story, it's a wake-up call for us. Her courage is a mirror reflecting what many Muslims have forgotten in the noise of everyday life: the responsibility to stand up, speak out, and act with heart. Sometimes, the most powerful lessons come from those outside the circle, reminding those within what they were meant to represent all along. Thank you for watching this video. If it moved you, inspired you, or made you reflect, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded of the power of silent action and loud compassion. Let's not just admire her strength. Let's rekindle our own. Stay connected, stay inspired, and may we all strive to live like true believers.